The special meeting of the CRA Development, the Community Redevelopment Agency to order. It is March 22nd, 2021, and the time is 4:01 p.m. Mr. Rugg, are there any additions, deletions, reorganization of the agenda?
No, Mayor, but I do have some announcements, just some upcoming meetings that I think are worth.
That's fine. You want to do that now?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
So there was a flyer that was handed out. This was also mailed out to the community. Next week, we'll be conducting a community outreach week to the historic Northwest, where we're going to be discussing all of the projects and where we're at with a lot of these things. As you know, there's lots of changes happening in that neighborhood. And so this is a chance to sort of go over all of those things. We'll be doing a series of virtual meetings, as well as one in-person, one on Thursday, April 1st. That's no joke. And it's just to educate and let everybody know where we stand on a lot of those projects, as well as to solicit input on other things that maybe the community is aware of. We'll be starting with just basic updates on simple services, things like making sure that the streets are clean and addressing some signage issues, stuff like that, all the way up to more sophisticated projects like the Sunset Lounge, Styx Promenade, and things like that. So it'll be sort of a soup to nuts update for the community, and we expect to do these quarterly moving forward.
Okay. I'm looking at the job fair, and I see 4 companies listed. Are those the only 4 that are hiring? Or are there others?
Richland, you want to come up to the microphone?
Richland Miller, Marketing Manager. So those 4 companies are the subcontractor companies that are working alongside of Whiting Turner that are currently hiring, yes.
Okay, but I still repeat my question. Will there be other companies at this job fair?
Not to my knowledge, it's just Whiting Turner and then those 4 subcontractors.
All right. Will we be having other job fairs where there might be more companies that are involved in hiring at some point?
This is for the Tamron Streetscape project only.
All right, so this is for a particular project?
Yes, Tamron Streetscape for the phase 1, yes.
Okay, I'll still ask my question. So are we going to be having job fairs for a broader either array of projects, or, and if so, how frequently? They in the planning works?
Mayor, I don't have details for you on future job fairs, but we'll make sure that.
Well, let me suggest that we continue to have relatively frequent outreaches, job fairs, and try to recruit as many companies as possible, and so that we can, have a number of opportunities available. Please,
Understood.
Would encourage you to do that. Okay. You said announcements plural. Is there another announcement?
No, that's all.
Okay, very good. All right, let's dive right into the agenda. We'll start with item 2, resolution number 2115, approving an agreement for incentives not to exceed $1,800,000 for Project Washington to create jobs in the Community Redevelopment Agency downtown / City Center District. Mr. Rugg?
Thank you, Mayor. So as I mentioned at the last CRA meeting, that we would have this special meeting to discuss sort of a larger effort that's been underway to attract financial services, specifically to the downtown. So the presentation is essentially to address both resolution items that are before you today, which approve Projects Washington and Projects Lake, which you have seen the LOIs, and both LOIs have been approved. So what we're going to do is just sort of give you a comprehensive view of what the efforts have been, and then also what you can expect moving forward, and some of the needs of what we feel after speaking with my colleagues at the Business Development Board, things we can do to continue the momentum and growth of this important sector to continue to grow jobs in our city. Gina? So I'll just do a basic overview of the financial services and those targeted industries. It's based on a lot of plans that have been set in place in the past. and go over the efforts of what not only myself and the city of West Palm Beach has done from an economic development standpoint, but also the Business Development Board is just chock full of information of what they have been doing as well. We'll talk a little bit about those projects of what, and that'll give you an idea of what you can expect in the future, what the continued actions are going to be need to sort of maintain growth in this sector, and then happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Next slide. So first, these are our targeted industries that were based on the last economic development plan. Pretty straightforward. We're going to focus primarily on the financial services. So we have an existing cluster that is in our downtown. It is primarily in the central business district of West Palm Beach, and so for all intents and purposes, it's Palm Beach Lakes to Okeechobee Boulevard, Lake to Intercoastal. And there's about 232 firms that are clustered in that area as of 2018 when we last did the analysis. And so this is, because it's a dense urban core and the central business district is essentially located to so many amenities, it's an attractive place to be, not to mention that it's sort of wedged between several wealth markets that are also attractive for financial firms to be located near and around. So again, we'll talk about the two projects, but there's additional prospects that you can expect in the future as the work between myself and the BDB continue that we expect will be coming before the CRA board. Next slide. So this gives you an idea of the actual area. So the area in orange is what we call the Flagler Financial District. And this was one of our main efforts, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in future. What? No, go back, Gina. Back, sorry. No. Go back, thank you. So, but the area in orange is the Flagler Financial District, which we branded a few years back. And what this map has illustrates is all of the amenities, whether they're office buildings, residential buildings, hotels, trolleys, just a variety of amenities that are clustered in and around where most of those 232 firms. And this is a big selling point for why West Palm Beach is so attractive. So we've been using this map. This map was developed by Aqua Consulting initially. We've updated it. The Downtown Development Authority was a big help in updating, specifically in adding all the new residential structures, because that's what a lot of these financial services firms have started to ask us. Where are our workers going to live? So each time that we speak to these financial services firm, we update this map with the latest information, but also to reflect the information that they're asking of us. But it gives you a good idea essentially of where, when firms are looking at our city, where they're looking at in order to locate. Next slide. So as I mentioned, our strategy is based on plans that have been set in the past. So it was funny when I went back and I was developing this presentation, I looked at the city's current strategic plan, and almost everything that is illustrated in that plan are reasons why, or achievements that we can say that we are essentially making based on what we've been hearing from these firms. The job creation is occurring. Most of them are citing our quality of life as a reason why they're coming here. And all of this has, just by 360 and several other projects, encouraging that redevelopment. The redevelopment is occurring. And a lot of that has just been sort of taking advantage of a lot of these national trends. And that just continues to add talent to our city. So getting more specific in the city's economic development plan, which is below that strategic plan, these are all the things that we've continued to do. We're marketing we're making those tailor-made campaigns to attract the firms. Not only myself, but when you see what the BDB is doing, it really is very specific. And those incentives are not made on a whim. they are engineered and designed to attract the firms and have the biggest bang for public dollars. And essentially, they're targeted towards those financial services. Next slide. So now getting into the specific efforts that we have been doing over the years. On the marketing and promotion, this is where we've spent most of our efforts. So by creating that Flagler Financial District and putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is where our cluster is, and then building the digital ads and marketing around that has gone a long way to saying, this is where you need to be if you're a financial services firm looking to locate in West Palm Beach. We've matched that with strategic print ads and other types of advertisements that are specifically targeted to CEOs and site selectors that are looking for companies. What's funny is by the time that they get to myself or perhaps the BDB, a lot of times we've already been shortlisted. These companies, they're already looking at us and we don't even know it, and they've crossed off and decided where they're going to go well before calling our offices. And then when we get into the incentives that we're offered, historically we have relied a lot on that state QTI, but also other tools like our building improvement grants, expedited permit review, and I can't underestimate the power of quick action. Just like incentives are very attractive, nothing is more attractive than being timely and saving folks the hassle of having to go back and forth and wasting a lot of time. By being responsive and offering that expedited permit review, that really sets us apart from a lot of other jurisdictions, not only in the state of Florida, but across the United States. And then lastly, we couldn't do it without great partners with the Business Development Board and Chamber of Commerce. So now I'd like to acknowledge the BDB. We've got Kelly Smallridge with us. Kelly, if you wouldn't mind coming up and just kind of sharing sort of a broad level of what this one over here, of what the BDB has been doing and just our current economic development partnership.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here as your partner today. And I'd like to take off from where Chris left and perhaps give you an overview as you look at these two contracts today, maybe give you a little bit more of a deeper dive into how we even get to where we are when you review the contracts. First of all, let me give you two thank yous. You are, as policymakers, as elected officials, you are the design and engineering team. We're just the sales and marketing arm. So whatever product that you come up with, whether it's a building, a live, work, learn, play environment, incentives, expedited permitting, we, the Business Development Board, are here to market with Chris whatever it is that you all come up with in the city. Mayor, thank you so much for being a big part of our economic development efforts. I know companies have come into our office and we've called you in last minute and they've said, we've never even met a mayor in the 30 years that we've been in Manhattan, and we come here and we spend 5 minutes and we get to meet the mayor right away. Second of all, I'd like to thank you for Chris Rugg and also for Rafael Clemente, because we have the great pleasure of representing all 39 cities in Palm Beach County, but I could tell you that Chris and Rafael and your entire team, for that matter, Rick Green and your entire development team, you have an A-team of staff members that they're unmatched by anybody else, and that also is very important. I'll take the Project Washington, New Day USA as a classic example, and Chris will testify that when they came in and we were really in second place to Fort Lauderdale, and after we won the deal and we said to the CEO, how did we win this? Like, what put us in first place? And he said to us, it was your approach to the way that you handled us. The red carpet treatment, getting answers immediately, the LOI, the mayor coming in, bringing in the university to the table, that all made a really big difference. So let me dive right in. As Chris mentioned, we have a countywide economic development strategy. There are several ways to go about economic development. There's the creation of new companies, there's attraction, retention, and expansion. We do not do creation. You have 1909, you have resources in this city that really work on small startups. That is not a role in a lane that the BDB plays in. However, we do attract companies like New Day USA and several others we'll mention. The retention of companies in your backyard. It's important that not only do we grow them, but we don't lose them. So an example would be Olympiset. Came to us many, many years ago. Maybe they don't have a net add of new jobs, but we want to make sure that they stay here. Expansion would be Exuma Biotech. Company had 20 employees at 625 North Flagler. Went to them, they were looking at expanding to California. Our life science team went in and talked to Exuma about clinical trials here in the city, and next thing you know, we get 80 new jobs. Long story short, sounds simple, but attraction, retention, expansion, core areas. The end result, good quality jobs paying higher than $55,000. Diversification, which I think really was the saving grace as to why this county did better after COVID than most other counties, and then long-term sustainability. Lead sources is also very critical. So Chris talked about by the time they get to us, they may have already ruled out many other areas. Keep in mind that the Business Development Board is the only agency in Palm Beach County that receives leads from Enterprise Florida. So the county set us up so that as leads are coming in, there aren't 37 different people going after the same CEO. Everything sort of funnels through this organization. And as we work through the factors that matter to this company, then we do the outreach to the city. Real estate brokers, great source. Banks, the local business community, chambers of commerce. Of course, sometimes you all receive the lead before we do. Also at the top of the list, site selection consultants. So a consultant usually is hired by a big company, which I'll also talk about later. They narrow down to about 4 areas, but in our advertising strategy, we also focus on that market as a very big lead source. When the executives come in, what are the things that we provide that nobody else provides? An overview of all real estate that's available within the key markets that they're interested in. They then ask us about housing. Where will our employees live in the city of West Palm Beach? Vendors and suppliers. How do we go about getting an accountant in West Palm or an attorney in West Palm? Expedited permitting that you offer is also very critical. Grants and incentives, city, county, and state level. The education. How do we go about hiring people? What types of graduates come out of Kaiser or FAU or Palm Beach Atlantic? How do we get them? How do we line up for them? And how do we ensure a seamless transition? What are the demographics of the city of West Palm? And then workforce assistance through CareerSource. Winning the project in the city. Again, we come here today and we present 2 projects for the final vote, but you all know that there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. So much so that in working a deal, we'll probably be on the phone with Chris almost every single day of this week on various projects. So we've got to tailor the sales pitch. We have to gather marketing materials from what you all have and then what we have. So most companies don't look at just a city. Before they get down to the city, they look at the state, they look at the region, they look at the county, and then they hone in on a city. But that sales pitch is a much broader pitch that has to be given. Daily and weekly communication with Chris or your development team. We have to answer real estate questions. Rental properties in the area they may say 400 of our employees want to rent for a year until they get their feet wet, so knowing what's available is critical. Tours of the downtown, understanding the live, work, play, and I would also add arts, recreation, and entertainment, coordination of the incentives, everything from the LOI to the contract to meetings like this evening. Expedited permitting, schools for their children. So we spent a couple days last week just talking about the schools. It could be K through 12 public or it could be private, but making those introductions and holding their hand is very important. Jobs for trailing spouses. So some of them will say we have these 4 mid-level managers coming in. There are 4 spouses that are going to be critical. Where can we find jobs? Then the press releases, and again, introductions to vendors and suppliers. So this whole initiative, and while we cover 6 clusters, everything from aviation, aerospace to life science to manufacturing, this whole financial service industry has gained the greatest traction since COVID. Mind you that we spent 8 years trying to get to this point, right? We started this, remember the whole Behind the Gates initiative? So it's called Wall Street South. It seems to be what the media has picked up on. And within Wall Street South, it exists within your Flagler Financial District. Over 80 private equity, hedge funds, family offices, and wealth managers have made the move to the county, with the vast majority being in the city of West Palm. Fortunately, years ago, you all made the decision to allow some Class A office buildings to go up. So those Class A office buildings are capturing that growth. Prospect pipeline, looking at what we see coming up, there is another 600 employee financial service firm coming from the West Coast. No, this is not New Day USA. It's another one that we're courting. And they also have West Palm Beach at the top of their list. I'd rather not give it a code name because I don't want it written anywhere, but your city is in first place. Chris and I are going to work for an Monday, April 12th sales pitch, and we have a lot of work to do before that time to get ready for this. This is really a big deal. Another financial service firm out of Manhattan looking at 10 jobs. Of course, today you're going to review Project Late. You've seen speculation about Goldman Sachs and their interest in West Palm, so we threw that in the pipeline as well. So very exciting times, although it's taken 8 years to get to where we are today. I would say there's more activity in the last 8 months than we've seen in the last 8 years. Again, companies that are managing multi-billions of dollars instead of hundreds of millions of dollars, although they're all valuable. Average salary is much higher than the county average, which is, again, very, very important. Ancillary jobs, important to your downtown. It flows into retail, it flows into restaurant, and it flows into lower paying diversified jobs as well. So with that, I'll stop. Chris, I know, has the remainder of the presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have some.
So-
Kelly, before you return to your seat, let me just thank you for all that you have done, not only in recent times, but you've been at the laboring oar of this economic development ship for so long, and it is so good to see the fruition of all of your hard work coming to bear. But I, as the mayor, certainly appreciate the relationship that the city has with the BDB, and I just want to publicly thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the resources that you give our organization, because we wouldn't be where we are if it weren't for your leadership, and I mean all of you on the dais, that it is a very great partnership that we have, and we only see more coming. But you've put the infrastructure in place that has allowed us to move forward at the pace. And it's all about speed to market. By the time we contact them, if we don't have answers in a fair amount of time, that window gives them time to change their mind. So we really work hard to get to that bottom line and push information out and get them locked in as soon as possible.
Thank you. Before Kelly takes her seat, or before Mr. Roop resumes, do you have any questions, comments? Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And maybe this is more for staff, because knowing you, Kelly, I can only presume that you would tell us if, you had a couple of slides there of services that are provided from the BDB to these businesses, and understanding that the speed to market is one of the biggest indicators of whether or not they'll land in West Palm Beach. I'm sure, but I just want to make sure that we have a good process in place. If you see needs pop up that we didn't know about before, or services or amenities that other areas are providing that maybe we don't, that we're working together to implement those and to consider those if it's something we can implement?
Yes. So I'll bring up one that I think you need to look at. And remember, 10 years ago, I brought up the lack of Class A office space. And I said, I think you all are leaving things on the table because you don't have the space. And I didn't have anything to market. My colleague, Tim Dewar, has joined me as well. And he works a lot of these financial service firms with me. And most recently, I sent him out on the streets and said, go knock on all of these apartment complexes, gather up some brochures, talk to them about availability, because we have these big firms coming in, and some of them have professed to us that 50% of their workforce will live in the downtown. Tim came back and said, first of all, they have nothing in print, so your team gave us some great information. Everything's digital. Second, more important, they had no availability.
Wow.
Okay? So I can tell this is us talking here, although this is a public meeting. Keep your eye on that component. That as these companies come in, if you go to any of these apartments, and typically they like to, they like to hire younger people, or people that are going to walk. Isn't that what we all strive for, is a walkable city? They're going to walk to their work in place of employment in the morning. You don't really have a whole lot of availability in these beautiful apartments that you've built. Wow. So while we put forward, with the help of Raphael, put forward a great map, it was just stunning, of all the apartment complexes, in reality, there's not much vacancy. And we need to think about how we're going to address that.
That is so interesting because there was a lot of speculation when those apartments were going up that we'd never fill them. Wow.
If you know something that I don't know, tell us, but he literally went knocking on
No,
the
no,
doors.
no, no. It's good news is that we're filling them up. Obviously, there's more demand than we had anticipated.
And just wait until New Day comes in, and they think that 300 people are going to walk to work. They're going to be wanting to fill these apartment complexes. We are aware of what's going up in Grandview and along Australian, so that's the route that we're taking. But you don't really walk from Grandview in Australian to Phillips Point. But that's okay. It's a good problem to have, but just let's all work on that.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you again, Kelly. We'll return to Mr. Roog.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Kelly. And just to kind of segue into, the actions for continued growth, when we start looking at things that, we need to do to maintain it, and housing inventory is one of those things, because Kelly had shared it with me as well about how we need to look at housing. And luckily, there are several housing projects that are currently under construction, so that's good news, as well as, I think, several others in the pipeline. You talk to Related at 360, and their building is essentially full. And, who would have thought that we would have filled it so fast? And needing to continue that office building development is something that is going to be a necessity as we move forward. Obviously, managing these incentive agreements, there's not an endless supply of funds. Luckily, there are several companies that locate to the city that don't need incentives and they don't want them. And they're coming here purely because of that quality of life issue. So make no mistake, it's not like everybody is coming in wanting or needing incentives. So that's a good news as we start getting that credibility of being a financial hub in the Southeast region. But that being said, as we continue to bring more office buildings online and we manage that growth. Luckily, the funding for the incentives comes from that growth, and it's paid over a very limited period of time, which then we are out of that obligation. Speaking to the two agreements that are before you this evening, those are over 4-year periods. Actually, I think Lake is a 3-year period. Once those obligations are met, and they're only met when the jobs are created, the city has met, or the CRA has met its obligation to that company, and the company is here, and the incentives have been paid out, and we have the jobs in place while the tax revenue continues to come into the city of West Palm Beach. But it's important that we maintain the investment and quality of place. Obviously, that's a big reason that everybody continues to highlight West Palm Beach, and then also anything we can do to enhance the pre-K through 12 experience for folks is going to be a benefit. Quality education is something that's asked continuously. So just to wrap up, we recommend approval of Resolution 2115 and 21-20. That's Project Washington and Project Lake. These are both will locate into the central area of the city, and which is represented by Commissioner Christy Fox. Happy to answer any questions that you may have, but I really appreciate you all taking the time, and hope this gives you a full, comprehensive look at not only how we've been approaching economic development specific for financial services, but also what you can expect potential projects coming in the future.
Is it safe to say, Kelly, Chris, that this pipeline is not being shut off after the ones you just disclosed to us?
Not even close.
Presuming that there's continued interest.
It's a good story.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions, Madam President?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Kelly Smallridge and the BDB and Chris for bringing this forward. I think it's an especially exciting time here in our city to have this much growth and to be able to have these kinds of tools, and I'm certainly supportive of using these tools to have attraction and understanding, just like the BDB is outlining kind of their strategy of attraction, retention, expansion. I know we're in an attraction point right now, but I think it merits the conversation for us as a body, either CRA-wise or City Commission-wise, to talk about that growth and how we will maintain that into the future. So, Mayor, at your discretion, perhaps a conversation of looking into the future from a strategic planning point of view of how we will increase our fire service, our public safety, our utilities department, our public works department to service this growth. So that way we can kind of start to look into the future of, we've attracted these really great companies, created these great jobs, and hopefully expanding into our neighborhoods, but how do we maintain that into the future? Certainly an excellent problem to have, but something I think we should start to think about now. So thank you.
And yeah, we have been continuing to think about it, but we could certainly have the conversation and share with you what our thinking is in that regard. Very good point. Commissioner Peduzzi and then Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kelly and Chris, for the presentations. I'm certainly, at least historically, a big proponent of providing incentives to attract these out-of-area businesses, and I think it's something that's very important to our city. But also, as stewards of the public funds, I just want to make sure, since these are significant funds and it's a significant ask, that in light of the changes that we've seen with COVID, I just want to make sure that these funds are absolutely necessary now, even with COVID and things that have happened just recently, that these businesses aren't already looking naturally to come here, that these incentives are still necessary to attract the type of businesses that we like to see to help our city move forward. I mean, is that, and I've heard that from constituents that, wait a second, these people are already coming anyway. Why are we offering them millions of dollars to come here? When if you ask the question, would you come here regardless? The answer would probably be yes. But I guess we're trying to hone them in on our city as opposed to the region. Is that the reason why these incentives are still necessary?
Well, let me jump in, and I'm going to let Chris follow up. You've heard that at least in one instance, while they were looking at South Florida, we were not at the top of their list. And I think our responsiveness, our flexibility to get something to them. Also, remember how these incentives are being paid. It's not like we're stroking them a check today. They've got to establish, and Chris, you could go into more details, they've got to establish that they've created the jobs, and then there's a period of time over which we pay these amounts. So some may see the $6 million figure, whatever number we have, as an incentive and think the city is just reaching into its general fund and writing a check. That is not the case. Chris, do you want to talk some more about how the incentive structure works? And I'd like to hear your insight into Commissioner Peduzzi's question, which is a very valid one.
Right, generally. Correct. If we don't have to offer incentives, we generally don't, because we've won a lot of projects. Elliott, which was a large one, Elliott Management, came without any incentives, and that was one that resonated throughout the financial services industry, that they located into West Palm Beach, and they didn't even knock on our door. They just made the decision and moved forward. So I think that's a good example of a big company that didn't ask for a thing and just made the decision. The ones that do are on the fence either way about one place or another for a variety of reasons. And what the incentives offer is that last sort of carrot to make them choose us over a different jurisdiction. And between that and being timely and being serious, and it's not, it wasn't just the mayor was, I'll give the mayor credit, he a little humble on this one, but he was just like, look, we're not going to get into a bidding war. This is what we can offer, end of story. And it's a responsible approach to taxpayer dollars that's built in accountability to make sure that they perform just as much as we're offering the incentives, and it's on a reimbursement basis. So if they don't perform, we don't pay. And we only pay for what they perform up to. And that's the only way that the incentives go out. And then obviously, as I mentioned, managing those incentives moving forward, because there's not an endless amount of funds available, and we have to maintain discretion moving forward with how we manage those incentives, and we will.
And Chris, also talk about the source of the monies. I mean, this is coming out of TIF
Oh,
dollars.
correct, yes. So the sources of the money, like, fortunately, most of these companies, and understandably so, it's a beautiful building, are locating in the 360. Those tax revenues haven't been felt yet. And so a lot of the funding that is going to be allocated to those incentives are being generated by that new project that we haven't actually experienced. So that's essentially money that will be new tax revenue to the CRA, and can be paid out without affecting existing services.
Okay, I think Commissioner Lambert did, Madam President.
Thank you. Chris, I know that in the beginning you referenced the business development strategic plan that was created. Was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
So the economic development plan
Thank you,
was
economic
approved March 2020, so just in time for COVID. So it probably needs some updating. But yes, so it's been in place for a full year now. A lot of the things that are in that plan we had been doing for several years anyways. But it takes its cues from all of the strategic plans and a lot of things that are currently in, say, the Parks and Rec Master Plan, our capital improvement plan. I mean, a lot of other things. So it really acknowledges a comprehensive view to what the city is doing anyways, but ultimately takes its lead from the city's strategic plan.
Well, I bring it up because I specifically remember the length at which you and many community leaders, business leaders, the commission at the time went through in putting that plan together. And I'm always very appreciative when you bring us these items that they tie back to that strategic plan.
Right.
And, you know, I always appreciate that you bring it up when we're making these decisions, but also maybe good to have an annual review of that, where we've gone, is there any adjustment that needs to be made? Because I really appreciate that we're using that as a guideline, because I truly believe in, you know, what's measured gets done, that we have a plan and we're following that plan.
Yeah. And it's probably time to being a little bit more prudent, because, you know, the plan was based on the study. The study was done, 2018. So, and obviously the world's changed drastically. So it probably deserves a little bit of a review. But if anything, what I've noticed is that a lot of the trends that were built into that plan have only accelerated, this being one of them.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that plan and also our strategic plan we'll be taking a look at to refresh it. Anyway, Madam President.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Ruga, I was just following up. My question came up after Commissioner Peduzzi's comments about why incentives and why now. And I know there are a number of very creative programs that you and the BDB have worked together collaboratively to create. So I was wondering if you could talk about some of the non-financial incentives that you have, as well as this program was modeled after the state program, correct? So it's not just like we came up with something we thought would work. It's been a tried and true program. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So most of our past economic development programs, we've had the fortunate partner of having the state commit 80% of whatever the incentive that was offered. And a lot of times we could offer a lot more per job. We're offering $3,000 per job, which is probably the highest that we can afford. But when you start bringing in the state, they at points, they had a sort of a tiered model that if you checked certain other achievements, you could get up to $8,000 per job, with the city and local jurisdiction only needing to match the 20%. And then at times we would split that 20% with the county. So we would only really have to put up 10%, which is a tremendous tool to have in attracting companies, especially when you match it to the quality of place that we have. It made it very, very easy for us to land several corporations. Luckily, I think the state has recognized that that's been an effective tool, and we're hoping that in this legislative session, that comes back as a viable way to attract firms. We'll see how the legislature shakes out. But that qualified targeted industry grant, as you mentioned, Commissioner, yes, it is modeled after the state program, where we essentially pay on we pay cash per job basis up to a certain amount, but it's on a reimbursement basis. So the company has to create the job, they have to show proof of that job, they have to submit it to us in an annual report that we review, and each year those jobs need to be maintained in order for us to reimburse them up to a certain amount. And it depends on the project. In Project Lake, it'll be no more than 20,000. For Project Washington, it's because of the size of the company, it's 450,000. But if they don't meet that amount, then we pay less. Now, they always have the ability to catch up at the end. So if at the end they meet that threshold of creating 600 jobs, then we would pay the balance at the end. But it makes it much more manageable to pay it out over a period of time. Now, they could create all 600 jobs all at once in 1 year, and that would be great for us. It still means that we pay out over that 4-year period because it makes it more manageable for us financially. So it's, as you mentioned, it's a program that's modeled after the state that's been around for a little while. Unfortunately, they sunsetted it, I believe, a little over a year ago. But we still, it's still a great way to approach economic development because it holds the company accountable and it doesn't pay out until the jobs are actually created.
And that was the right tool for this particular opportunity. There are other times where there's sometimes non-financial incentives.
Without a doubt. I think the secret sauce that we have here in West Palm Beach is by responding quickly, getting direct answers, direct information, just simply having our staff on hand. I mean, being able to have our development services director, Rick Green, and the building official, Robert Brown, attend a meeting with the CEO and give them very specific timelines of when they can expect a building permit and be able to move in and then meet those timelines is tremendous. The straight answers and quick action, again, is something that not every jurisdiction has and can actually pull off. I think it's a testament to the strong mayor form of government, but also just our ability to be open to business.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fox.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris and Kelly, so much for bringing these opportunities to our city. This is so exciting, and I stand ready as the downtown commissioner to give personal tours anytime. I know that we all saw the article about New Day USA, Project Washington having confirmed, but I was wondering if Project Lake has also committed to West Palm Beach, or are we still in the courting stage? Is there a time that we'll know who the company is? No, that's all. I just want to know.
I'm sorry,
if they've
Commissioner,
confirmed.
you asked if Project Lake
have
has
they confirmed?
committed?
Are we? I'm not sure if they were confirmed once they receive this agreement to be moving to West Palm Beach, or are we still sort of in the courting phase with them? Project Lake.
So Project Lake, I don't think we have their signed agreement just yet. Do we have their signed agreement? No, not yet. But they have the agreement, and they know that it was on the CRA board for approval tonight, and they didn't object. So we expect them to sign here in the next day or so.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, and we're on item 2, so I will entertain a motion. There's no further discussion.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 21-15.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing none. Motion carries 5-0. On to item 3, resolution number 2121, approving an incentive agreement for Project Lake in an amount not to exceed $60,000 for the development and creation of jobs in the downtown/city center district. Mr. Rube.
Mayor, Commissioners, this just continues to, this is the formal agreement that was built on the LOI that was approved on March 8th, and is the formal agreement for Project Lake, which is an incentive for 20 jobs and will not exceed a total incentive paid for $60,000 over, again, I believe a 3-year period.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Lambert?
Thank you. Will the accountability for ensuring that they've met these milestones for jobs creation fall within the CRA office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And will we be able to get updates of that as that's moving forward?
Of course, all of the reports will be public, and we can share those with the mayor and city commissioners.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 21-21.
Second.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you again to the BDB, to Chris Rug. And I would like to take advantage of this opportunity, and this is hot off the press, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, Chris Rug has ascended to be executive director of the CRA, and I have hired the new the new economic development director, who is also my chief of staff. She's in the audience, Rebecca De La Rosa. Rebecca, do you want to stand up and just wave your hand so people know? She has big shoes to fill. She understands that. Chris is leaving quite a legacy, but Chris has assured me that he is going to share the recipe for the magic sauce, right? Yeah, okay, no pressure. So, welcome, Rebecca, and you'll be working very closely with this board, and there's a tremendous win at our back as we move forward as a city. Anything else, board members? If not, we will adjourn as CRA and reconvene as a city commission at 5 p.m. Thank you.